are you?
Tyler, the Creator. Also known as Thick Daddy 27.
Tyler Gregory Okoma, professionally known as Tyler the Creator, is one of those Kanye West archetypes. Rapper, singer, producer, fashion icon, and internet sensation all rolled into one, like a Gen Z limelight burrito. In the past 10 to 15 years, he's easily become one of the biggest artists in the hip-hop industry, so naturally, I've never listened to him because I'm just different. You know, I'm alternative. I listen to like some super niche stuff. Don't look at my wall, please don't. Well, that's actually not true. I tried making this video last January, but 2 albums in, I pretty quickly realized I was biting off a lot more than I could chew. I mean, I cover primarily pop music on this channel. You see the artists on my wall, and here comes this guy that has an upside down cross on his forehead and says something sexual or offensive every 15 seconds. I basically cried. But in the past year, I've had a bunch of chances to cover different artists and albums that were pretty out of my comfort zone. Childish Gambino is someone whose music I'd never listened to prior to making a video about him, and now he's one of my favorite artists. I saw him in concert. That shit was insane. It was a fucking core memory, one of the best days of my life. So with the release of Chromakopia, now seems as good a time as any to finally give Tyler's music another shot, and hopefully I won't cry this time. Tyler was born on March 6, 1991 in Hawthorne, California, making him 33 years old. He got his start in music at the whopping low age of 16 as co-founder of the hip-hop music group Odd Future. Wolfgang killed them all. What the fuck? Odd Future is what most people call them. You ever walk into a Zoomies and see that OF donut logo? No, it doesn't stand for OnlyFans. That's them, guys. There seems to be a shit ton of Odd Future lore. 21 members, multiple subgroups. Definitely enough content to warrant its own video, but for now, I'll just say that this ragtag group of kids came together in 2007 and would drop a handful of mixtapes as a group before unofficially disbanding in the mid-2010s. But I mean, the success of some of these individual members speaks for itself. Yeah, Tyler's pretty clearly the most successful of the bunch, but Frank has his fan base. This guy became like a crazy good pastry chef. Those white OF t-shirts are probably still selling like hotcakes. Odd Future was clearly a very successful venture for them. Since his debut as a solo artist, Tyler the Creator has released 8 studio albums: Bastard, Goblin, Wolf, Cherry Bomb, Flower Boy, IGOR, Call Me If You Get Lost, and Chromakopia, all of which we will be covering today. A few clarifications to get out of the way. I will be listening to the estate sale. I will not be listening to the instrumental versions of these albums, because obviously that would be a massive waste of time. And he also dropped an EP for the Doctor Strange Grinch movie in 2018. Normally I'd probably overlook it for a video like this, but it's January. I'm kind of missing the Christmas holiday spirit, so I'm just gonna listen to it. And all of these projects add up to a total of 134 songs and 488 minutes, or 7 hours and 8 minutes of music. Lastly, I have to give a little bit of a disclaimer. I do fully expect that I'll love some of these albums. In some ways, it feels like every day since that first music commentary video I ever posted about goddamn Taylor Swift has been in anticipation for this moment where I finally discover one of my favorite artists of all time. But this isn't gonna be a glazing session, alright? So if that's what you're expecting, just leave. I also encourage you to remember that everything I say in this video is just my opinions on these albums. And as always, comment down below if you disagree with anything I say. You know, I try to read as many comments as I can, and maybe you'll change my mind. I'm gonna be rating all the albums out of 10, giving my top 5 songs, and just for fun, I'll do like a if this is your favorite album, you're the type of guy too. But with all of that out of the way, let's get listening, losers. Oh my god, guys, can you believe the Tyler video is finally done? Oh. I've literally been working on this video since like November, and I finally finished it this week. But the main reason I hopped in is because I wanted to give a big disclaimer for this video. In case you don't know, Tyler the Creator is an artist that covers a lot of kind of uncomfortable topics, particularly in his older albums. So this is a trigger warning to anyone that may be sensitive to topics such as SA or the use of the F slur. Obviously, I did my best to dance around them as much as I could, but at the end of the day, I do still address it in the video, so I just wanted to put this out there for all of you. If you feel like it's something you're sensitive to, just click off. Don't feel bad. I got plenty of other videos you can watch that are totally like PG. Well, maybe like PG-13, you know, I do kind of curse a lot. You could also skip to like later in the video. It's really just the first 3 albums that touch on it. And yeah, aside from that, I hope you guys enjoy this video. I spent so much time editing it. I really put so much work into it. I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. It's a long one, so sit back and relax. Be sure to like it if you do. It really goes a long way. Take it away, main video timeline, Jason.
This is what the devil plays before he goes to sleep.
Bastard was released on Christmas of 2009, which is kind of wild considering how dark it is. Fun fact, I wrote this part of the video the day after the 15th anniversary of this album. Bastard was independently released, so it's not on Spotify, but you could find full official versions of all the songs on his YouTube channel. That's how I listen to it. And I'll be honest with you guys, alright, I pulled another Jason and fucked up the listening order. I went Goblin, Wolf, and then came back around to Bastard because I didn't know it existed, and honestly, that definitely affected my perspective going into it. Had I listened to this album first, I don't think Tyler's raw and unfiltered perspective that he has here would have sat as well with me. But I mean, after listening to Goblin twice, I could pretty much handle anything. Probably except Goblin a third time. On this channel, I've talked about how album openers will always set the tone for the rest of a project, and Tyler pretty often takes advantage of that by really hooking in the listener in a way that establishes how the album is going to set itself apart in Tyler's discography. That becomes particularly prominent when we get into the, all the different eras and whatnot. Usually that's with the production and like musicality of the song, but that's not really the case here. In fact, Bastard opens with no instrumentals at all. It's just Tyler saying, yo, yo, fuck two dope boys and fuck nah, right? And any other fuck fella ass blog that can't put an 18-year-old fella making his own fucking beats, covers, videos, and all that shit. Fuck you, post Drake ass cliche jerkin, LA Slauson rapping, fuck fella ass hypebeast fellas. Now back to the album. I don't know what Slauson means, but that is my new favorite word. Then you have this really deep, pitched down voice talking to Tyler like he's in therapy, saying stuff like,
well, Tyler, we're gonna have 3 sessions, and if you don't talk in these sessions, then they're gonna go by slower.
And after that is when Tyler finally starts rapping, which would lead you to think that this is gonna be an autobiographical album. Something self-reflective, maybe, with like lots of trauma dumping and stuff. But not really. At least I hope not, because ass milk alone could have my man arrested. I think I just struggle with where to draw the line between Tyler playing this absurd character and him just being himself. You'll go from him opening up about not having a great relationship with his dad to, I'm the type to put you down to bring myself up, so when I grape a bitch, I hold her down and get my best nut. Only he didn't say great. On one hand, the album being framed as Tyler struggling to open up in a therapy session works pretty well. Because like every time we're able to squeeze a little bit of vulnerability out of him, he just changes the subject right away. I rewatched Good Will Hunting last week. That is a classic Will Hunting. The reason I'm not that big of a fan of it is it's just hard to follow. I mean, if the theme of what you're saying is I don't actually mean what I'm saying, or maybe I do, but I don't, but I could. No, but I don't. Do I though? I don't know. It could definitely get confusing. That said, it is sometimes really funny, the stuff that he says on this album. It just feels like he's blurting out every intrusive thought that comes to his mind. Yeah, most of it is pretty offensive and definitely wouldn't fly today. But even before I listened to any of Tyler's music, I knew that he was famous for being unfiltered. And considering this is his debut solo project, it's not hard to see why. We'll go on to really see how Tyler grows and develops as a producer, but considering he was 18 when he made this album, it's actually insanely impressive. When I was 18, I couldn't even drive. Yeah, I was a late bloomer to driving. And I think knowing that gives this album a sheen to it. Like, yeah, it's not nearly as impressive as the production on his other albums, but comparing it to other first projects, I think Tyler is great on it. Not only is he a confident rapper, but he's doing things in his music that most kids his age wouldn't. Most kids his age would make a mixtape. Tyler has themes, he has bars, he has skits where he's talking to a lower pitched version of himself. As much as this album wants you to think that it's just a collection of songs made by a kid on his laptop, there's clearly more to it. And I may not like it that much, but I respect it. Here's my top 5 songs. I'll probably give it like a 5. If Bastard is your favorite Tyler album, you probably have daddy issues. No, I'm kidding. You probably listen to more music on SoundCloud than you do on Spotify. For Halloween, you just wear your regular clothes with like really detailed face makeup, and you take really creepy photos for your Instagram with captions like, ooh, I'm coming to get you. I could definitely see how this album would be a cult classic for his fan base, but for me, I just didn't really find that much value in the stuff he was saying. On top of that, the production was a little redundant. It's just a kid making beats on his laptop. It's gonna be redundant. And to be honest, not a fan of the vibe. Like, I just can't listen to Ass Milk and feel good about myself.
I'm a fucking walking paradox.
I'll be honest with y'all, this album's really weird. For a while, I really didn't know what I was gonna say about it, and I still don't, but I'll just do my best. Goblin was released May 10th, 2011, and it's Tyler's first album that he put out with the record label. Now, what does that mean exactly? Hard to say. For the bigger labels, artists will usually trade 70 to 80% of their royalties, and in many cases, creative control over their music and ownership over their masters in exchange for grade A distribution and promotion. I know, doesn't seem like a great deal, because it isn't. That said, XL Records is an independent label that doesn't have nearly as much pull as the big dogs, and in return would probably offer a more reasonable contract. So it makes sense that if Tyler was going to sign with any label at this point in his career, it's going to be one that he can retain creative freedom with. I can't imagine a world where Republic Records releases something like Goblin, you know what I mean? The funny thing is, he eventually does sign with Columbia Records, which is definitely one of the aforementioned big dogs, and I think that change is reflected in the way his music evolves after these first few projects, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. Goblin is an hour and 22 minutes long, bro. Technically it's a deluxe, but the standard edition isn't on Spotify, so Goblin is an hour and 22 minutes long. And look, I didn't like the album that much, alright? If you like it, that's cool. We can agree to disagree. But regardless of quality, can we at least all agree that this album is a slog? I'm not saying there aren't some songs that I liked. You know, I can't think of anything right now, but here's my top 5. I'm sure these are fine. I just have beef with albums that are the same length as like a whole ass movie. There are some exceptions, like say if you have a standard edition that's a little bit over an hour, throw on 9 deluxe tracks and a 10-minute version of one of the really popular ones off the standard edition that like just so happens to end up being 30 songs in 2 hours and 10 minutes, like that's fine in my head. But this runtime for an album as one-dimensional as Goblin is just absurd. In a lot of ways, Goblin feels like a big fat middle finger to the music industry. It does what Bastard does, but in a more prolonged fashion. And I will admit, there are some songs that feel like he commits more to that aesthetic, but to counter that, most of these songs are longer, slower, and have beats that are even more redundant than the ones on Bastard. When he calls out blogs that shit on Odd Future and Bastard, it feels earned because he's an 18-year-old kid and it's his first solo outing as an artist. But by the time we get to Goblin, that angst and frustration just feels kind of old, man. Like, why are you still so mad about literally everything? Now, ladies and gentlemen, I listened to this album a total of 2 times for this video, and I found that the only way you can get the smallest amount of enjoyment out of listening to this album is if you disregard the boring beats and stagnant production and literally only focus on the weird things that he's saying. When you do that, I guess it's kind of funny. But that's like not appealing to me. Tyler, bro, if I want to laugh, I'll turn on New Girl.
Bing, bop, boom, 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 bop, bam. The type of shit I'm on you wouldn't understand.
In my opinion, everything related to the music on this album was just bad. Boring, repetitive, unmemorable. I'm sure this is another one where like the diehard fans like it too, so I'm kind of scared I'm gonna get flamed in the comments, but I also am 100% certain that a majority of the Tyler fans watching this video are skipping over the Goblin timestamp because they didn't listen to it. Because it's bad. To me, this album reads as Tyler not trying to make good music, but just trying to stand out. And while I get why an up-and-coming artist would want to do that in order to put their name out there, standing out kind of loses most of its charm when you realize that they're just doing it to stand out. Does that make sense? I guess for an artist that now stands out because he's just so genuine, this feels like a little bit of a hyperbole. I'm not sure if I used that word right, but I think I did. I'll give it a 2. While I obviously really didn't like it, it's not completely soulless, nor is it lazy. There's a clear vision for the album, and it's like well executed, I guess. It's just not a vision that I like. No, my smiley face is getting a little covered. If this is your favorite Tyler album, you're the type of guy that I don't like. You want to be niche so bad that you're convincing yourself that Goblin is good music? Okay. All right, buddy. On Halloween, you probably don't dress up at all because costumes are for little kids, but you still pull up to the Halloween party for some reason. When they play Hot to Go and everyone's jumping up and down, you get like visibly upset. If I didn't know the turn that Tyler's music was eventually gonna take, there's no chance on any multiversal earth that I would have kept listening.
What a goddamn ladder. God damn it, darn that shit at the goddamn camp.
On April 2nd, 2013, Tyler dropped the final installment of his Wolf album trilogy. We got Bastard, Goblin, and now Wolf. The clear-cut best album in my opinion, and it's not even close, so don't even think about trying to debate that in the comments. Yonkers was apparently a really big hit after Goblin came out, and that's definitely reflected in Tyler's perspective on this album. You know, he doesn't really act as much like he has something to prove, which was such a staple of his previous 2 albums, and he also doesn't talk about essaying people anymore. Let's go. I didn't think that was something we'd have to worry about for one of these videos, but here we are. Glad it's gone, I guess. Bastard and Goblin weren't horrible production-wise, but they kind of gave the vibes of one guy in FL Studio on his laptop. And like I said before, that adds to the charm of those earlier albums, but Wolf is the first album of his that feels like a production. He trades the simple drums and synths for strings and piano parts, while it still retains some of the attributes from the previous 2 albums. Everything about it just feels so much more nuanced. Now, Wolf has a really descriptive and kind of weird narrative that it tells throughout the course of the album, but after 3 full listens, I still kind of struggle with piecing it together, so I did some research and this is my best, okay?
Yo, what's up, Sam? Nice beats. Here, this is Wolf.
You like jazz? Shut the fuck up, French fry.
Sam, look, a girl.
Hi, I'm Salem. That's a weird name. We should make out. Wolf, Salem's the first girlfriend I've ever had, so you better not cuck me. Okay. Promise? Okay. I gotta sell drugs. I'll be right back. Okay. Wolf, what the fuck? Hey man, she fucked me. That's it. You better take it back right now or else. Or else what? What are you gonna do, pussy? No. You wouldn't. Yes, I would. Nuh-uh. 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 Watch. Hey, Earl.
No, Sam, don't!
No, 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 no. Oh, my shirt. What the fuck, Sam?
Oh my god!
Yeah, that's right. Sam, that's too far. I mean, look at how wet Earl's shirt is. Look at Earl's wet shirt. And your shirt's next if you don't unfuck Salem right now. Oh, God. Wait, but Sam, since me and Wolf are dating now, we could just cuck him back. Okay. Don't worry, Earl. Next time I see Sam, I'm gonna splash his shirt so hard. I may have mixed up the order of some of those things, but yeah, that's pretty much it. The threads that connect the Wolf trilogy together are kind of left up to interpretation. I personally subscribe to the theory that Wolf is meant to take place in between Bastard and Goblin. Him being the one to voice all these characters was something that I thought was just a cute little bit to be like a nod at the fact that he's the only one producing and writing all these songs. But a lot of people frame this album as a fantasy that Tyler concocted in his head at the therapy sessions in Bastard and Goblin. This idea is backed up by the fact that the album ends with Wolf telling the therapist that the next time he sees Sam, he's gonna kill him. And then Goblin picks up with the therapist saying, oh, you wouldn't do that, Tyler, come on. It's like the therapist was entertaining Tyler's narrative just to see where it went. And that was the trigger that was like, okay, let me put an end to this. Now, this is where I start to do some of my own analysis, so bear with me, all right? This is not based off any research I did. I think you could say that the therapist being the one to introduce Sam to Wolf in the beginning of the album was a sort of experiment to see how Tyler would go along with it. And all the things that happen between those two characters are just Tyler's internal conflict. Let's say that Sam is a representation of Tyler's current music persona. He's crass, he's kind of a dick, but he's also deeply insecure, which is why he's so guarded all the time. The connection between the two is pretty clear just looking at his perspective on the last two albums, but it's also reaffirmed with the opening track before the skit where we get some instrumentals that are pretty soft with Tyler saying fuck you, fuck everyone, etc. That shows that he's guarded. Then the therapist comes in and says, hey Sam, nice beats, and introduces him to Wolf. Wolf is the representation of Tyler Akoma, who Tyler is as a person without his music career. Who's Salem? Salem is a representation of Tyler's music, and him being so protective of it, wanting Wolf to stay as far away from Salem as possible, is just him compartmentalizing, keeping a strong distinction between the perspective that he portrays in his music and who he actually is as a person, which is a concept that I touched on in the Childish Gambino video. It's pretty common, you know, Abel, Tesfaye, The Weeknd. But here's the thing. Wolf has a lot of songs that are a lot more personal to Tyler than anything he's pumped out up until this point. He talks about his grandma's death. He talks about his personal experiences. He even has a song where he really dives into his relationship with his dad, which is something he's dabbled in on previous projects, but on the song Answer off of this album, he really digs deep into it. And with these songs being more connected to Tyler's personal life, Salem and Wolf have officially fucked. And Sam isn't happy about it. Why? Well, there could be multiple different reasons. Maybe it's because his previous unfiltered persona is what brought him this far. Who knows how this change is going to affect his success as an artist moving forward. But I honestly think it comes from fear of how it'll infect Wolf. He wants to kill Sam now because he's had a taste of what it's like to make personal music or to fuck Salem. I don't know why I keep doing the hand gesture. And as a result, his personal life has forever been compromised. In his later albums, Tyler's very vocal about his music being his baby. He doesn't have time for serious relationships. He doesn't have time to even think about settling down, even though he's in his mid-30s, because he loves his art so much, and that's it. That's his life. And I think this is the start of that. You know, after Yonkers, he was put in a position where he could really go all in on his music career and make it really big. But in doing so, he compromises his personal life. So yeah, that's my interpretation of it. But let me know if you could fill in any gaps in the comments, or if I'm just insanely wrong about everything, which is like pretty common on this channel, I feel like. I think Wolf is a cornerstone album for Tyler because it cements his change from being a kind of meme niche artist to a legitimate figure in the music industry. And it dives into what that costs him in a really interesting way. I don't have a lot of songs that I'd pull out from this album, but for that reason alone, it's one of my favorites. I'm feeling a solid 7.5. If Wolf is your favorite Tyler album, you probably wear super niche and like obscure costumes. Never ones that are too polarizing, but you still go all out with the details. People will like your costume, but ask you to explain it. You know, one of those.
Excuse me, mister.
Yes, I got a haircut mid-filming, alright? I'm sorry for the continuity error. Released on April 13th, 2015, Cherry Bomb is Tyler, the Creator's first album without the inclusion of the Wolf therapy skits. So basically the start of these albums becoming a lot less confusing. Skull. Yes. That said, this is probably Tyler's weirdest album for other reasons. If Tyler the Creator's discography was somehow a metaphor for the stages of a man's life, Cherry Bomb isn't just puberty, it's puberty with the awkwardly mid-pitched voice, and the acne, and the pedo stash, and the sparse pubic hair, the whole nine. I'll start with the positive. The intro uses a tambourine and these super distorted guitars, which really thrusts you into this new energy for the album. It's a hard shift from his usual stuff, which I personally love to see because, you know, I love when an artist grows and develops, and that tells me that he's leaving the Wolf trilogy as its own distinct thing, trading out strings and pianos for electric guitars and full-on drum kits. And there also seems to be more of a focus on individual instrumental parts, like riffs and stuff, rather than any unified arrangements. And you know, I'll admit it, that high energy is super infectious at first. Up till now, Tyler's vocals have more or less been the focal point of every song, but on this album, he's absolutely buried in this horribly EQ'd nonsense. Look at the title track, for example. You know, in my opinion, title tracks are the thesis statement to the larger essay that is an album, and Cherry Bomb the song is completely unlistenable. I know I had my complaints about Tyler's musical style when it came to some of the previous projects, but this to me feels like a drastic overcorrection, while still retaining the exaggerated angst that made him him, turning that from something you pick up on from his presence or performance on a song into something you feel from just listening to it, like the second it starts playing. But those all feel like nitpicks, you know? At the end of the day, I realized that I didn't like this album because as a listener, it felt like I was driving a transit bus through a Category 5 hurricane, windshield wipers up, down, squinting so hard, laser focused, trying to find something, anything in the mess of it all to latch onto. Alt rock Tyler is something that sounds like it could work pretty well on paper. I just don't think it was executed that well here. And that's okay, you know, it's just my personal preference at the end of the day, but a little bit underwhelming. This album is one of those that you listen to because it's weird, and I'm not gonna say there's no rhyme or reason to any of it, you know, there's plenty of instrumental moments here and there that I feel like could work really well if you just didn't have the high knob turned all the way up. Here's my top 5 songs. I'll give it like a 3. I guess, I don't know. If this is your favorite Tyler the Creator album, you're probably one of those guys that dresses as horror characters with those rubber masks and tries to scare your friends when they're coming out of the bathroom, then laugh at them really hard when you do, like, haha, you just took off a year of my life, so funny. While I obviously don't like it, this album is so weird and singular that I honestly don't mind just putting it in rice and pretending it doesn't exist.
I said, okay, my infatuation.
Flower Boy came out July 21st, 2017, and it's Tyler's first album that he released with Columbia Records, alongside the likes of AC/DC, Adele, Addison Rae, and more people, but I was too lazy to keep scrolling down the artist page. And like I mentioned earlier, this change is actually kind of clear in the music, not only through his slightly more diverse feature catalog and more concise production, but also in regards to the overall vision for this album. In the past, Tyler's grit was like his signature thing. You know it's a Tyler the Creator song if he's yelling slurs over a hectic beat. Now, I don't think there's anything wrong with vulgar language in music, but I also think censoring your language doesn't always mean you're censoring yourself. Maybe these later projects don't feel as nitty and gritty as some of his older stuff, but that doesn't mean there's no heart in it. And you can't really blame Tyler for wanting to be more than just the super vulgar guy. But back to Flower Boy, this album is low-key one of my favorites. When you look at the cover, it's pretty clear this is gonna be more lighthearted than his other ones. And it wouldn't surprise me if that was like the main pitch for the album. Like, you know that guy that used to make super dark and disturbing rap music? Here's the cover for his next album. Now that's a hook. The production on this album feels a little bit more reminiscent of something like Wolf, rather than creating these grander abstract arrangements that he's just gonna rap over. We're starting to dip our toes a little bit more into the pop field with instrumentals and lyrics that are a bit more interwoven. There's a couple of Rex Orange County features, which I never knew they made music together, and I think their songs have a really cool mesh. On Forward, which is the opening track of the album, Tyler comes in with his signature, you know, really gritty vocals, while Rex is doubled and sounds a little bit more spacey, like he's in the background. And that contrast really opens up the soundscape of this song in a way that feels super simple, because again, it's just two things, but wide and open. It's really nice. The next song, Where This Flower Blooms, opens up with strings and a really delicate piano, but again, Tyler comes in with a super gravelly tone, completely contrasting it. As the song progresses, the instrumentals open up a little bit, we're introduced to Frank, and he brings in this fat boom bap drum. What started off as a distinct contrast between Tyler and the instrumentals is now slowly bridging the gap between them. And that to me is representative of this album's intent. No matter how you put it, signing with Columbia Records is a decision that shows his goals for his career. At the end of the day, he's not completely satisfied with being being this super niche internet rapper. He wants to have mainstream success, and while that means he's gonna have to close some old doors on his past, it opens up so many new ones. Flower Boy obviously is an extreme tonal shift for Tyler, but to me, this album isn't Tyler becoming soft so much as it's him facing the fact that everyone has a soft spot, and this album is Tyler tapping into his. Songs like See You Again and Garden Shed have Tyler coming in with the same cadences as he used to, but the subject matter is a little more optimistic, a little more romanticized, and I think that results in a pretty uplifting and kind of hopeful even listening experience. And yeah, maybe I am biased because I just tend to like more optimistic, fun music, but this is another one of those cornerstone albums that I feel like if he hadn't chosen to go this route, could have really affected not only the amount of success that he saw in his career moving forward, but it also just feels like such a key point for him in sculpting his music persona, giving it more dimensions. I also cannot stress enough how much I personally feel that Tyler upped his production skills with this album. As much as I was kind of taking a fat dump on Cherry Bomb, there are definitely some moments in there that I thought were nice. Smuckers is kind of a good song, it's not that bad, but even those moments felt kind of untamed. The attention to detail and the elevated taste that Tyler shows on this album really proves that he's come such a long way from his Goblin days. I mean, there's just so much variety on this album, it's phenomenal. Here's my top 5 songs. I'm feeling a strong 8. I really loved it. And if Flower Boy is your favorite album, then you're probably kind of a simp. For Halloween, you go dressed as whatever your girlfriend wants you to be, whether that's Travis Kelce to her Taylor Swift, fat, balding, 40-year-old man with his meat in his hand to her Playboy girl, or even the pepper to her salt if she's that kind of costume girly.
I saw a photo, you look joyous.
IGOR was released on May 17th, 2019, and takes a hard, and I mean hard, shift for Tyler. It's not really disco, but something about seeing him with that light blue jacket and the Violet Beauregard cut just gives me 70s disco vibes, and I love it. The album opens with this really buzzy synth that goes on for, I kid you not, 23 seconds without anything else. Then we get introduced to a simple kit, the instrumentals start to build a little more. So far, we're clearly a lot more melodic, but it doesn't seem to stray too far from some of the stuff off Flower Boy. I guess the biggest change being that Homeboy got castrated or something, because he a tenor all of a sudden. He does this trick for pretty much the entire album, which is another big contrast from his earlier stuff, where he pitches down his vocals, and I think that kind of symbolizes how this album is literally the polar opposite of Goblin. Goblin was bloated, stagnant, overly dark, depressing, and offensive. IGOR is tight, interesting, melodic, romantic, and relatable, which should really go to show how far Tyler's come as a musical mind, I guess. Like, not only is he completely going off the other end, but he's doing it without feeling disingenuous. If anything, this album feels like a pretty natural progression for him. Wolf introduces his vulnerability into his music. Flower Boy has him come to terms with comfortably showcasing it, and IGOR is loving heartbreak galore. Anyways, the intro track stays pretty simple, no real lyrics or sentiments to grapple onto, but just like Forward or Death Camp, it introduces and establishes the vibe of the album. It's not until the next track, Earthquake, where I feel like we see the album's concept refined into a complete song, and I wish I wasn't familiar with this song, bro, because I could only imagine how fun it would have been to see, or I guess hear, this album unravel without any spoilers, especially because that intro track is a little bit elusive, you know? You don't know exactly what direction it's gonna go in, and then Earthquake hits like a truck, dude. The hook is catchy, the instrumentals, exquisite. The Cardi feature is fun, and funnily enough, Tyler's vocals are not that bad. Like, obviously there's a little bit of a dissonance there because they are artificially pitched up, but he must have gotten tips from Caliuchis or something, because there's a couple runs in there where I'm like, damn. The thing with this album is that it's great in the context of Tyler's discography because of the shift that it signifies and, you know, the era that it ended up being for him, but it's also just a great concept album in general. IGOR is Tyler's new alter ego that embodies everything that Flower Boy awakened within him, but also the kind of fun, over-the-top romantic that gets awakened in anyone when they fall in love. And I love it because it almost feels excessively emotional, like Tyler's committing so much to this concept. My man does everything in extremes, and it's just so good. IGOR does have a narrative to it as well. It's not as convoluted as the one in Wolf, therefore not as worthy of a skit, but Leviosa, Leviosa, Leviosa. What's that? Oh, this? It's just my new magic wand. Cool. Gimme. Ow, what the heck? Wow, this wand feels really good. Yes, my shirt's finally dry. Hey, what's up, IGOR? It's Salps the Hat. Yo. Oh god, this is actually kind of dangerous. I should get rid of this. Didn't skit well. What do you want from me? So the album starts with IGOR falling in love with a guy who's in a relationship. By new magic wand, he's successfully broken them up, and now they're dating, you know. He got himself that new magic wand. it's a metaphor for the guy's cock. But he pretty quickly realizes that being in a relationship isn't everything he thought it would be. For starters, now that they're dating, this guy has the ability to send Igor into the fucking shadow realm if he ever dumps him. Thus the whole boy is a gun thing. I'm pretty sure it's based off another song that's like girl is a gun or something. I think, I don't know. But Igor's also starting to realize that he put the guy on a pedestal, leading to the last song on the album, Are We Still Friends? In which Igor breaks up with him and obviously, but from the title, wants to still be friends. Don't do it. It's a scam. I've spoken to a lot of people that say Igor is the only heartbreak album that they could stomach because all the other Taylor Swift and Olivia Rodrigo stuff is just over dramatic nonsense, which you got some nerve coming in here saying all that. Look at my wall, bitch. Alright? I got Red Taylor's version on red vinyls. It's spread across 4 LPs, bitch. But if I were putting myself in those idiots' shoes, Igor frames heartbreak as an internal struggle rather than the result of his significant other hurting him. And you just don't really see that very often because the latter is what sells better. In most cases, the majority of people would rather blame someone else for their heartbreak than themselves. I do also think there's something to be said about how that is a representation of heartbreak in a more realistic way, and the trajectory that this album takes you on from falling in love with the guy to falling out of love with the guy in such a short amount of time. It's not only super impressive, but it's also super relatable because if I'm being honest, not that I've ever been in love that many times or at all, I'm not going to specify that, but that's low-key how it be feeling. You know, it feels super long when you're going through it, but then by the end, it's like, wow, that was really fast. And kind of felt like a fever dream. So for that reason, Igor stands out to me a lot. I'm not gonna lie. But I mean, it also stands out because it has some of the most discombobulating yet dreamy production that I've ever heard in my life. And it's kind of difficult for me to like pin down at first, but after thinking about it for a while, I realized that he does a really great job at refining things down to just a few tracks, but having those few tracks be unique enough that they can carry the song. I usually get kind of annoyed by buzzy synths, but on a song like Running Out of Time, it really does a good job at setting a foundation for all the weird spacey licks and whatnot to build off of. Then a large part of the unorthodoxness of it comes from the rhythm of these sounds. They're usually super syncopated or even like a little bit off sometimes, which ends up filling so much space, and it'll make you think that there's a lot more going on in the production than there actually is. Sometimes I feel like you can tell when an artist is just throwing on random shit on a song, just like having fun with it, not really caring. And then other times I feel like it's clear when they're making an orchestrated mess. On the surface level, sure, I could see how some people might think New Magic 1 doesn't have much thought put into that beat. When you really sit with it and like pick it apart, you can start to see these like smaller intentional things that just make you like the song a lot more, to be honest. I think that's actually a really big thing with this back half of Tyler's discography. Everything kind of serves a purpose, you know, even if it's just to convey a larger point or make a drop hit a little bit harder that you can like easily dismiss. There's intention to everything. I kind of love that. It just gives it so many more layers. Igor doesn't have Tyler reaching into the deepest crevices of his bag, but in a lot of ways, it's a concept album in its purest form. You get the sense that Tyler knew exactly what he wanted to do going into it and stayed true to that idea throughout the entire creative process. Probably even putting some songs to rest a lot earlier than he normally would, just so they don't feel overly crowded and full and therefore take away from the idea of the album. So yeah, to summarize, Igor is great because it's tight, it's unique, and it's easy to digest without sacrificing any of its unorthodox flair. The production feels simultaneously refined and all over the place, and no matter how weird the individual instrumental tracks or his vocals get, it all stays really close to the vibe of the album and never becomes overwhelming, which, as a pop listener, I kind of fuck with that. Here's my top 5 songs. I'm gonna give this one... I want to give it a 10 so bad, but it's a 9. As much as I love this album, I just kind of feel like I need to sit with it a little bit longer for me to feel like I fully got everything out of it that I possibly could. It also just really isn't my favorite shtick from Tyler. Like, it works really well, but it's not him doing what I think he's best at. If Igor is your favorite album, you probably cross-dress on Halloween, and everyone thinks it's hilarious. I feel like I'm cross-dressing right now. I look like a Karen, bro. This is kind of crazy. This is my mom's suit jacket.
Oh, you look malnourished.
Call Me If You Get Lost was released June 25th, 2021, and it just so happens to be home of the first Tyler the Creator song I've ever listened to. What's Her Name was the anthem to my prom house.
This game's too easy.
I listened to it like 30 times in that one weekend alone, and it's still one of my favorite Tyler songs to this day. Maybe, probably, maybe. I don't know. He also released The Estate Sale, which is the deluxe, on March 31st, 2023. Basically 2 years later, which is pretty fucking long, but at least that means I can still hold out hope for an Eternal Sunshine deluxe. Fingers crossed. In my opinion, Call Me If You Get Lost is Tyler's 1989, his Damn. It's his most palatable and marketable album. If I'm guiding someone who's never listened to any of Tyler's music before, I'm handing them this album first. And it's not that it feels disingenuous or anything, it's just not coming in with the same thematic ambition as some of his other projects. And it works well as like a catalog of songs that you kind of pick and choose from. He does have a couple Call Me If You Get Lost tags scattered throughout, but other than that, there wasn't an insane amount of shit tying this album together that I was able to pick up on. With this album, the character is named Tyler Baudelaire. Baudelaire, I don't know. And he's out and about, only 2 suitcases in his hands, traveling the world, which explains why there's so many features on this album and why this is the only album that has producers other than Tyler credited on it. This project is bigger than Tyler. It's not the same reflection of himself that his other albums were. And that results in a super fun, if not a little long, listening experience. Each song just fires on all cylinders and squeezes every last drop out of all the instrumentals. But to contrast, the sentiments to these songs are a lot simpler. And that's where I see the traveling light metaphor kind of shining through. You know, he only has a couple bags with him on the cover. He's doing all this crazy stuff with all these different people, but isn't taking all his personal baggage with him. You see what I did there? It's great, but I don't see myself connecting with it as a singular body of work in the same way that I do IGOR, Flower Boy, or even Wolf. But I will say the vibe of this album and the aesthetic of it is super fun. I love the powder blue. I'm so fucking jealous of that hat. Can someone please send me a link to where I could buy that hat, please? I got a tan one for the video, but this does not look the same, okay? It's just not as good. It just looks bad. It's hard to be mad at this album. Honestly, on my first listen, it was my favorite because it's just banger city. But once I familiarized myself with the other ones a bit more, it kind of changed. Some additional notes, I really like Pharrell's feature on Juggernaut, but it low-key gets worse with every listen. I don't like it as much anymore. The guy that yells all the shit is awesome. He has like the perfect amount of rasp to his voice. I love it. I'll give it like a 7.5. If Call Me If You Get Lost is your favorite Tyler album, then for Halloween... I love how this bit just turned into what your Halloween costume would be. You probably did Steezoween, or you usually do a group costume and just take one of the ones that everyone else doesn't want. You know, like the more obscure guy just for the sake of the bit. Like, if they're going as Justice League, you're Aquaman. If they're going as Big Time Rush, you're Gustavo. Ladies and gentlemen, we finally arrived to the last album of the video. Chromakopia was released October 25th, 2024, and was actually only announced 2 weeks prior. It was also released on a Monday, which, in case you don't know, that's fucking unheard of. Every artist under the sun, regardless of genre, for as long as the earth has been spinning, I'm almost certain that even Mozart, back in 200 AD or whenever the fuck he was popping, dropped his shit on Fridays. That's what the culture is. New Music Friday is like a whole thing. But Tyler vocalized that he wanted to drop Chromakopia on a Monday to cater to all those people commuting to work on Monday mornings after the weekend. You know, they're tired as fuck. They need to pick me up. Chromakopia, here you are. And I really like that idea. Personally, I still prefer Fridays just because at this point, listening to new music Friday mornings has become like a concrete part of my weekly schedule. I purposely make it so I don't have classes on Fridays so I can have the time to listen to the music and make content around it and whatever. But anyways, looking at the cover, I honestly went into this album expecting it to be a return to his dark and demonic shtick from his first 2 albums, maybe with an older, more mature perspective, but not really. There's definitely a little bit of a grit to this album that feels sort of reminiscent of those older projects, but his production here, I mean, it's not even close to those first few duds. So much so that Chromakopia is my favorite, alright? I said it, and it's definitely not recency bias, because I listened to all these albums for the first time last month, and having all of them fresh in my head really only made me appreciate this album more. Chromakopia takes the energy of Call Me If You Get Lost, the heart of IGOR, and the soul of everything that I dream of when it comes to music, puts it between 2 slices of sourdough, eats that shit up, and poops out a masterpiece. I know it's kind of redundant of me to say this, because his name is literally Tyler, the Creator, but the sheer amount of creativity on this album is just mind-boggling to me. He's doing shit that I can't even imagine fathoming on a song, and he does it in ways that tickle my brain in all these new places. Now I know what you're thinking. Jason, chill out with the glazing. Zip it up when you're done, fam. But no, I won't, alright? Because I'm gonna be real with y'all. On the first listen to all these albums, I liked them, but my reactions to them weren't nearly as visceral as I was expecting them to be. It wasn't until this one that everything clicked, and I was like, oh my goodness, this man is a genius. Saint Chroma starts with the chants and marching sounds, which, as we know, plays a part in the concept for this album. And Tyler comes in whispering? Fucking whispering, dude? Top down, big deal. That's when I knew, man, alright? That's when I fucking knew. Then the synths come in, the pitched up vocals, like from IGOR. We're building to something. What's gonna happen? What's gonna happen? Oh my god, bro, my ears literally came. Taking that energy right into Ratata's exquisite album sequencing carries out the energy from that initial drop on Saint Chroma, and the transition into Noid after that, so good. I just love the ways he goes from song to song so smoothly on this album, regardless of if they have different vibes. But it's really the topics of these songs and how Tyler goes about covering them that makes me love this album so much. They're so different from anything else I've heard. Let me just list them out. Noid is about Tyler's anxiety that he's felt in his daily life ever since becoming so famous, to the point where he even feels paranoid paranoid in his own house. Darling Eyes about Tyler's thoughts on polyamorous relationships, and he somehow makes them not seem toxic, like at all. Hey Jane is about Tyler knocking up a girl and dealing with the consequences of that, you know, trying to figure out whether or not they're gonna get a schmishmorshman. Again, in a very non-toxic way. Shouts out to Tyler. I Killed You is a crazy one. Tyler turns black hair genetics into a metaphor for being your truest self, but even that feels like an oversimplification. You know, there's so many double meanings and double entendres there. It's really one of my favorites. Just go listen to it if you haven't. Judge Judy is about Tyler hooking up with a girl that does some pretty weird stuff, but he just goes along with it. And then it turns out that she just died. She had some kind of terminal illness and was just checking kinky shit off her bucket list. Like, what the fuck, bro? What the fuck? Sticky is just a banger. I'd honestly listen to it more if it wasn't so fucking overplayed already. I still love it. The percussion, those trumpets, it's super infectious, but everyone and my mother and their mother is singing, "It's getting sticky," and like, that's it. And it's just like a little much for me right now. I don't know. Maybe I'll bust it out again in like a few months when that dies down. Take Your Mask Off is a diss track towards gay men that have wives and children. Like, who comes up with this stuff, man? And I could go on. Each song has such an interesting concept with enough content to spur an entire podcast episode worth of conversation, but somehow you listen to it and you just like don't feel overwhelmed at all. I don't get how that works. To me, this album is a master at work. It's a culmination of every project he's made up till this point. Oh shit, I never listened to the Grinch EP. Damn. It's the culmination of every studio album he's released up till this point. I will say, I still am kind of struggling with the army motif and like what that really means. But regardless, song for song, this album is just Tyler in his element. Listening to it, you can almost feel him picking and choosing different tricks that he's learned throughout the course of his discography. We'll take this synth from Call Me If You Get Lost, this guitar from Cherry Bomb. We'll pitch the vocals up like on Igor. And as a result, it feels like this abstract masterpiece that's like a culmination of all his work. I do want to mention my favorite song off this album, maybe second to Sticky. I haven't decided how different I want to be with my ranking yet. Like Him, which is probably the lowest point of the album for me. We as the audience know that Tyler doesn't have a great relationship with his dad. You know, that's something that he hasn't been shy about in his music before. And I feel like this is the first song that really dives into the daily mental torment that causes him. Tyler on this song is basically saying that the only connection he has to his dad is how similar they are. How Tyler reminds his mom of him. Like, dude, that's heartbreaking. And the song ends with a soundbite of his mom taking the blame for why his dad left them. And you could tell that she's just saying it, you know, so Tyler doesn't resent him. And I could cry just thinking about it, I'm not gonna lie. The lyric, "Mama, I'm chasing a ghost," repeats in the chorus, and it's just so good. It says so much with so little, you know? You're chasing someone that's never gonna come back that you don't even know. And with this particular word choice saying, "Mama, I'm chasing a ghost," it's like Tyler's that same little kid that's just asking, "Mama, when's daddy coming home?" And right before that outro, Tyler sings, "Do I look like him?" And you just feel it so much. Like my heart, bro. Chromakopia intertwines its production and lyrics in such a way that you don't really distinguish the two at all. And I honestly think that should be the end goal for anyone making music. Like, while it's nice to have nice lyrics and nice instrumentals here and there, you gotta create a listening experience that's so immersive that the person hearing it is like not thinking about those things. They're just feeling it and going along literally second by second. I'm not gonna lie, I've listened to Sticky like 100 times. I still don't know like 99% of those lyrics. But when it comes on, I'm losing my shit and just filling in the blanks when I can. You know, with the lyrics I know, like Sneaky Link. That's pretty much it. And I love Like Him. Could not tell you a single instrumental part on that song, because every time it plays, I'm too busy levitating to be able to pick up on any of that. While there is obviously room for deeper analysis and breaking all of these individual attributes down, that to me is still priority one. Think about it like good cinematography, good acting, good writing. Alone, they're obviously impressive, but when you're able to seamlessly intertwine the three, that's when you get a banger-ass movie. And the audience will be so immersed in it that they're not thinking about the technical stuff. They're just feeling the feelings. And that's what I think Tyler manages to do with Chromakopia. You know, each of these songs feels like its own short film that captures such a detailed story, one that you can either enjoy at face value or build upon on your own in your head. Black Mirror type shit, you know? I never watched Black Mirror, but I'm pretty sure that's like kind of what it is. Anyways, I think you get the point. Here are my top 5 songs. This is a fucking 10 out of 10. Tyler's peaking right now, brother. And if Chromakopia is your favorite album, you probably have a sick-ass YouTube channel that whoever's made it this far in the video should definitely subscribe to and leave a like on the video that they're watching right now on on your YouTube channel, because that's sick. You're dope. You're a dope person, really. And you dress up as Clark Kent for Halloween. If we're rating like complete discographies, Tyler the Creator has to be like the most divisive for me. Maybe that's not the right word, but just like the first half was so mid and the second half was so good. I mentioned how it wasn't until Chromakopia that I started to feel like I finally understood Tyler's music, thus making me like his previous albums more. And I think it took a while for me because with all the different eras and grand concepts for albums and songs, it can be kind of hard to hone in on like Tyler, you know, like what Tyler is so good at. But I've come to realize that it really is the creativity, his ability to cook up these unique ideas for songs and albums and like aesthetics that most people could hardly dream of coming up with, and refining them into easily digestible music that essentially anyone can enjoy. You don't have to like hip hop or even be familiar with hip hop in order to enjoy Tyler. And I'm not saying that there aren't other artists that do that too, but I feel like Tyler finds that sweet spot of being like super mentally stimulating and like feeling like deep layered stuff while also not feeling too convoluted that you just get overwhelmed. On top of that, he's always giving his music his everything. While there are some songs and projects of his that I don't like at all, there's not a single moment where I feel like he's not trying. And you could see that, you know, in all the stops he busts out for each individual song and how he talks about his music in interviews and stuff. You know, you could just tell he's like oozing passion for it.
And people love what other people are passionate about.
And look, this man at this point has the Midas touch, all right? Regardless of culture, regardless of anything outside of just the pure music, my man is cooking. My man has been cooking for years. So to summarize and close, I guess, I'll say I think it's Tyler's passion for his craft and his passion for creating unique listening experiences for his fans that sets him apart. With every album comes this grand body of work that is so much bigger than him, but he still remains at the center of it all, you know, staying connected to it on a personal level. All the different characters that he plays in his albums, you know, all the ones that we've covered in this video are just hyperbolic representations of himself. And while that may not be clear at first, when you spend a little more time listening to the albums, I think his connection to them starts to shine through and it just makes you like them more. But at the end of the day, I could talk about all these individual things and try to do some like deep analysis as to why Tyler's so famous. But the truth is, you just gotta listen to understand, brother. I think Tyler's song crafting is more complex than most other mainstream artists. So in return, you as a listener start to feel more complex emotions with them. You know, going back to Chromakopia, you know, those different unique topics that touch on things that aren't hard to understand, but it's also like, wow, I never really thought about it that way. I also think in the current mainstream music industry, Tyler's kind of in his own lane. No one comes to mind that is trying to do what he does at the level he does, and we'll see how that will go on to affect his ambition as an artist moving forward. I don't really know, but for now, he's making good shit. I like it. And on that note, I guess I'll give my official album ranking from worst to best. We got Goblin, we got Cherry Bomb, we got Bastard, we got Wolf, we got Call Me If You Get Lost, we got Flower Boy, we got Igor, and of course at the top, here's my top 15 songs. I already know making this is going to be one of the hardest things I ever do in my entire life. I'll link my Tyler playlist in the description if you're interested. Comment down below your thoughts on Tyler's music or your thoughts on any of my opinions that I shared in this video. And also drop your favorite Tyler album and or era. Let's get our friendly and respectful debate on, guys. Join the Patreon for bonus reaction content, and I'll see you guys in the next one. So I just listened to the Grinch EP, like literally just now, right before I'm about to export, because I completely forgot about it again. It wasn't bad, you know, the sound was very distinctly Tyler, the Creator, but it also had some little Christmas little thingies here and there, like some bells and whatnot. And I don't know who Ryan Beatty is, but he has a feature on one of these songs. Phenomenal. I love you, Tyler. Thank you for making good music.
Yeah, I film all my vids on my phone, saving for a camera, so please join the Patreon.
I can't match pitches for shit, but I like Billboard hits. Don't give a fuck about genres. I like Ye and Taylor Swift.
Yeah, I'm a Swiftie. Swiftie.